Hello. It has been quite a while since we updated the video tutorial that talked about the optimizer and looked at the functions of the optimizer. So what I thought we might do is just pull up a demo lactation diet and then look at some of the aspects and some of the features as we run through the optimizer in the diet. So I have a demonstration lactation diet here, and so I'll bring that up into the recipe page. And see, we have our list of ingredients here. We have 53.5 pounds of intake. My goal would be to make 85 pounds of milk described here, with the 85 pounds with 3.85 and 3.1 true protein. 1,500 pound cow, lactation is 2.2, and we've got her described really well. So that intake, the nutrients are shown over here. You can see she has a 16.2 crude protein, NDF of about 30, starch is about 28, and we're feeding 322 milligrams of monensin per day. So with that, I would like to hit 85 instead of hitting this 82 and 87. And so one way I can do that is I can allow the optimizer to help me. So if I've got everything, I've got my prices in, I've got good nutrient analysis of all that, some feeds that are basically coming from the feed library. I think I might have a soy hull pellet that may have a KD in there, so I might add this soybean hull pellet with a KD right here so I can get my time rates there. I think that's 120 for that type of pellet. I'm going to save that just to make sure I've got all my prices saved here. So I'm running 82 and 78, and like I said, I want to get to that 85. So I'm going to take this right over to the optimizer screen. And the first thing you have to do when you're working within the optimizer is to go into the settings underneath the optimizer. So we are in this recipe, and we have been over in the recipe page. The optimizer page is right here. The first thing we need to do to make sure that we're set up correctly is go into the settings in this blue bar right here and work with the settings in the optimizer. So you're in the optimizer, you're in the settings right here, and if you're in the linear only, you will get no option to set up your nonlinear. So we may cover the linear optimizer in another session, but I wanted to go through the nonlinear optimizer. So if we click on the nonlinear, it gives us a whole setup screen here. So we're going to be in the nonlinear. We're going to optimize on a dry matter basis. This screen here, or this function here, says the column on the current recipe. So the left, when we get our display, left of the constraints will be where we have set up that, your diet will be there, and that's where your current diet will be there, and so that'll occur there. We'll see this highlight the deviation, and I set mine at 2%, and the current recipe will be the base recipe over on the left side. We'll look at that as we set it up, but you can also optimize for a decad optimization. If you click this, you will notice that Right now you can optimize for a decad level in the diet. You can also choose to exclude any ingredient that has 0 from the recipe projection, just a bookkeeping thing. You can also optimize for UNDF, either UNDF 30 or UNDF 240, either pounds or percent body weight here. So you'll see those functions here. I'm going to choose not to do that now, but you see it wouldn't let me change the units until we click on there. So now we get into the objectives of the optimizer. So you can set up your optimizer under the primary objectives, and the primary objectives are usually, financial. So you can decide minimum ration cost, minimize purchase ration cost. You can maximize income over feed cost or maximize income over purchase feed cost. And again, we can show you where that is easily done to list all feeds by whether they're home raised or purchased. And so that will allow you to use these functions, the purchase feed cost versus total feed cost. So the secondary set of objectives, you can maximize milk efficiency. So that's pounds of milk, pounds of dry matter. I'm going to go ahead and just use maximize milk production. You can maximize productive nitrogen, so protein in, milk protein out, flow, and then maximize forage content here. So I'm going to choose those. If I am going to choose to use amino acids maybe in this, I would try to optimize for microbial yield to give me the most MP generated there. I'll leave my reordering for overall, which would be primary and secondary. Then the quick mode search is actually just a mathematical bypass on some of the heavier math. It gives quicker solutions. It doesn't take away from the overall primary and secondary, but it slims the math down quite a bit. So I'm going to do that to allow the computer to operate a little faster. You can click default here to change the iterations and the samples and the variability. The number of solutions here, when the optimizer either gets a solution or gets a suboptimal, what I'm asking for it to do is show the best 5 results here. You can manipulate also the out of bounds percent. So if you wanted to raise what your dry matter percent out of bounds is, you can do that. I opt to do that through another screen, and I'll show you that. And anywhere there's an I here, you can go and kind of refresh what the thinking is. This is the general description of the objectives of the optimizer, so that's a good one to read and kind of get a handle on. But this is just basically the setup for the nonlinear optimizer, and we need to do that first, and then that will be specific for your program. You will have that set up every time I go into a lactating recipe for the optimizer. It will bring this up, and you can change that around for optimizing different classes of animals, but this was how it will appear for my high cow lactation. So I'll close that. Here is your nutrient level, basically linear constraints. You can add any of these or set mins and maxes here, either through the utility tab or through here. You can actually set up for your program. So if you wanted a minimum of 14% crude protein, you can set these mins and maxes here. I've got 27 starch. I may go to 28.5 in our scenario, but these will stick within your program. If you want to add things, that would be on the linear screen. So say you wanted, let's just go to a a fiber number. So if you wanted a carbohydrate number, say you wanted your total carbohydrate to be at some level, you can add this here, proceed, so you've added it off your list. The list is quite extensive. Off of, you go to overall parameters, and you can get any number of energy, macro minerals, whatever you would like through there, and you can select those and put those up over here. So again, if I wanted any values off this list, I can click on them. They appear here, and then I can add them to my list, and then they will appear over here after the confirmation. So here's my list. This down here is my nonlinear. So this is ME supply, MP supply. This is the nonlinear calculations for things that are running through the CNCPS model. Up here, this is the linear constraints, crude protein, soluble protein. That kind of, the idea here is the nonlinear will run through the linear parameters and setups, and then it'll come down here to the nonlinear. Now again, if we just set our starch minimum of 26, you can see we already have some violations over here in our linear constraints. I'm going to choose 28.5 over here, and a minimum of 29 for PENDF. No, 17. I can change that up to 18. My total NDF would be 29. So I have some changes I can make here. If I don't leave any values here, then it'll show me these values in my report, but I'm not constraining them, so I don't have those set up. Now down here in the nonlinears, if I was choosing to use amino acid balancing, I would probably come down to methionine here as a requirement on the ME supply. So I'd want to know what my methionine is in relation to how many megacals I had. Probably also want to do the same for lysine. And then I would add those to my list here to show those and confirm that. Shrink this back down, and that would be my list. Now, if I don't put constraints in here, it will not do it, or I can click off of here. And since I'm not using amino acids here, I'm going to go ahead and do that and not choose to try and do that on our scenario here. But you can see I do have some red values. My rumen nitrogen is up a little bit in this diet, and my ME and my MP supply are negative, which just means I'm trying to come up with 85 pounds of milk in that diet that I was only getting 83 and 78 in. So as I go over here and look at my ingredient list, the way I understand this is like a small snapshot of what is going on in your recipe screen. So what I might do is I might go back to the recipe, and I might want to unmix my mix. And here I've got bicarb, limestone, some trace, some magox salt, calcium, rumensin, vitamin E. None of those ingredients are really going to be that necessary, but for my optimization, what I use the nonlinear for is usually to help me with the protein energy, and then I pretty much go through and balance my minerals. We could use different approaches here, But let's say I unmix my mix. If there would have been some megalac or some protein in here, you'd sure want to unmix it before you brought to the optimizer. So I'll bring that over to the optimizer, and it kind of refreshes the screen, shows me those levels. Now here it's not putting on some parameters on either side of that. And what I can do is I can go up to Utilities and go to the Regenerate Specifications. And what that does is it goes through and pulls these levels here and refreshes and opens up 7% or 6% on either side. So if I go to Utilities and Regenerate Specifications, then it will usually come through and plug in percents on either side here. And so what I might do for this example is I can use another function just by clicking on each ingredient, because what I might want to do for right now is just leave these ingredients here. So I'm going to bring those in, right mouse click, and I may fix the min and max for the current recipe. So what I'm going to do, the recipe is at 0.6379, 0.11 on the trace, so I'm going to just lock those in. I've chosen not to let water become part of the optimization. At that small amount of dry matter, I don't want that complex in the optimizer, so I'm going to take that out. Quick search is on. I am asking again, remember, for keep my feed price at a minimum and then maximize milk. I've got these areas set up. I can go through here and loosen any area that I wanted to. So what I might do is just do a little hunting and pecking and take off some constraints on, loosen up some constraints for my protein. I know that my rumen ammonia looks a little large here, and I can run it regardless, but what I may want to do is just open up some of my possibilities before I run a scenario. So let me do that. You could run it first and then set that up again, but now I think what I'll do is I'll run the optimizer, which is from this button here. So I'm in this ration, in the optimizer, and here runs the optimizer. So I'm going to go ahead. One thing I didn't mention was, here's the total dry matter intake of my diet, of these ingredients here, the dry matter. I'm setting the min and max. I'm letting the computer do it at 53.1, which is below this, and then 54.2. So what I might choose to do is to go and put that at 53.5 and see if I can make the ration balance at the same intake. I guess it's asking me for the 759 there. So that's the same intake as the other diet was on. There's also a function here that you can use the dry matter predictions, and then this will set up the minimum dry matter intake and the maximum intake from the CNCPS or the NRC. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten that down. I'm going to go 50, and then I'm going to use that 53.6, and then I've got that set. So from here, I'm just going to go in. I might hold my megalac to 0.5. It's not taking any in the original diet, but I might not want to let it go crazy. So let's click the optimizer. With the quick search mode, you can see that it's running through some suboptimals, it's not finding the optimal mathematical solution. It's not found any optimals. But remember in the setup screen, I asked for it to find the 5 best solutions. So what it did is it came up here and it said, well, these are 3 suboptimals out of the 225 that it hasn't found. And so I can start looking through here, and each one of these diets is showing me there was a problem with the 6.3 pounds of hay. Down below it's saying the starch in these 2 diets came up to 29 and 29, 29.01 and 28.9. So that was a violation. If you see here, my existing diet was listed here. Here's the ingredients. So total was 53.7, and you come down, it was $4.69, and it was limited by 78 pounds of milk. If we go down here and look, it was predicting 82 on energy and 78 on MP milk, and so that was the limitation here. So if we look at our 3 scenarios, even though we were limited, it wanted more starch each time, we have 84 pounds of milk here and 79, so we're actually generating a little more milk there. It did cost us a little bit of money each time. Now over here we had a diet that cost us about 7 cents more. Still, the starch was too high, but it was going to make 78, a little less milk. So from here, we can adjust the optimizer. Let's take this to 5 pounds of hay instead of up to the 6.3, and from here we can rerun it again. Again, the optimizer's doing math, doing the heavy lifting, asking to solve the equation for what our parameters were. So we'll let it run. No optimals again. As you see, the diets, there aren't any areas here that look, that were butting up against the constraints. Now, if we walk down through here, it does look like this arrow here is saying that in this ration alone, it bumped up against the soybean meal. So what I might choose to do is increase that soybean meal, come down in these 2 scenarios, it wanted less cotton. So I may come down and choose to loosen up the cotton. Now down here it was butting up against some minerals, and I think that is more space occupying than anything. It did look like it took a little bit of megalac in this diet, but it was not constrained by that. Again, down below you can see by the brown box, this diet wanted to take in 28.51 of starch, where we had our limit of 28.5. So again, I could change that here, or I could even choose to work with this diet, knowing that I may have no problem going up 0.01 in starch in this diet. But what I might do is just loosen that up and again rerun it and let the optimizer kind of do some work and some functional balancing here. Again, looking, I've held my minerals and stuff, and what I'm trying to do is let it do the big thing, which is solving MP in our diet. Now we're butting up against starch each time. It wanted less than 29 NDF here. But it's interesting because what I wanted was 28.5, and here's a 28.9 as a limitation. So if I look down through this diet, and I can look down through each individual ingredient, again, it wants less cotton than my 2, the 28.5 that I constrained it, so it's a 0.46 higher in starch. And I could go through each individual ingredient. It's a 16.84, 29 NDF. My existing diet was 30. I can come scroll down through here and look. Now my diet again, well, remember it was 82 and 78. This suboptimal diet, it did not solve all the math because of this issue with the starch, but I'm getting 83 on milk, on ME milk, and 83 on MP milk. So when I look over here, the rumen ammonia is 166 instead of the 160. But this diet is very close in the fact that I've got 83. The original diet was $4.69, and this one is $4.78. And so this diet is very interesting in the fact that it's not optimal at this point, but there are some areas I could live with. I could make this starch 29 starch and come in here and say, hey, I'll take a 166 on rumen ammonia, and then let me run this again. I may limit the cotton to 1, and I may go ahead and optimize that again. So again, from your outputs that you get from this diet, you can see that I can go in and now see what my issues are. And again, I'm having trouble getting to that 85 pounds of milk that I wanted. Still butting up against wanting less ANDFOM, wanting more starch here. And so what I could do, several different functions. Again, we can go up and look and see where we're butting up against. It wanted a little more canola. Let me open that up to 5. And what I might do is just rerun that. One thing I might do for the presentation is just allow that to take up to 54 dry matter pounds of intake. So I'm going from 78 milk to 85 as my target. Let me run the optimizer again. I'd love to get some green numbers here, and it looks like I'm doing that here. You can see I've got 2 optimal solutions already. There's 3, so here are my 3 optimal solutions. There are showing right here. So this, we were saying we wanted the corn grain from 9.9 to 13, and it's saying this took the bare minimum at 9. And so I can easily change this without rerunning it. I can scroll down here. Look like it took the top on soybean meal every time. So what I might want to do is run this to 5.5 and rerun it. Looks like it's not impressed with our cottonseed. Wants less of it every time. But here are 3 optimal diets that I can look at. And again, when I asked for 99% of MP and ME for that 85 pounds of milk, so it brought in it to 84 and 84. And I could tighten this up if I wanted, but you're better to leave the optimizer tightly constrained and then loosening it up as we go. But I may choose one of these diets. Our diet was 53.57. This one's 53.86, so we're awfully close. That one is, again, $4.69. This is $4.78. Let me just choose this diet as our solution that we want to look at. And what I can do is then bring it into the solution here. And this is just saying it's going to allow me to take this recipe and bring it over to the recipe page. So I'll do that. Here again it is at 84 and 84 now. I can run a comparison against the 2 and start looking at it. So again, that dry matter intake was 53.4, 53.8, or 53.57, 53.86. What would be interesting is my diet cost was $4.69, $4.78. The income over feed cost, if it's going to make that change in milk, met $9 here and $9.96 here, and the differences are shown in red here from my deviation of 3%. I went up in crude protein. My starch went up just a little bit. My NDF went from 30.2 to 29.2. I can choose the CNCPS option here and look at my limitation on my saved diet. Again, was 82 on energy, 78 on protein. Now I'm 84 and 84, and this looks like a diet that I should consider. So I can go back to the recipe page, look at it some more. I can even bring it into the optimizer again and maybe bring that soybean meal to 5.5. And if it doesn't want any cottonseed at all, I'll just let it run without that. Now I can re-optimize the optimal diet just to see how it's going to look with those changes. I'm getting green values here, and now I've got 7 optimal values, optimal solutions. And again, the difference between a suboptimal and an optimal is just it met all the constraints for us. Our original diet is still over here at $4.69. Now we've got some cheaper rations over here. And what we might want to do is buzz down through here and look and see which one we'd like the best. Maybe we try to run this at 29.5 total NDF, and we can change that here. Just out of curiosity, we'll look. We're starting to get those optimals. That wasn't very hard work to do that math. We've got 6 optimals, and again, the price went up just a little bit on some of these. Here it went down. We could choose one of these diets again. So let's choose this one and now bring it over to solution. And here it is inside my solution now. I can run a comparison. This is showing the comparison between the second and the third, but I can go to versions here and do the saved versus the last. So again, now I'm looking at that first diet and then the second one here. Again, my intakes 53.5, 53.9. It snuck up a little bit. I can go back and change that again, but we were at $9 on income over feed cost. Now we're at $10, and we can look at allowable milk down here. So that's just some of the functions we wanted to look at in how we use the optimizer comparison. You can also go to show all, and then it will list your saved diet here, your second, your third. And remember, none of those have been saved, so you can save those, save the best solution that you would like. And that's basically some of the nonlinear optimizer comparison functions, and I just wanted to share those with you. Show you some of the updates again, knowing that we are optimizing on first economics. The second set is optimizing by some other parameters. One last detail, if you go into feed details and go clear down to feeds info here, very easy method to look at, see what's purchased on our farm and what's not purchased. So I should probably have this one listed in there also. The things that are in our mix, our ground corn, our hay, our silages have been purchased. These are out-of-pocket feed costs. These may have been purchased already or homegrown, but here you do have to save that to make that functionality work, and then it will give you those efficiencies that you look at: income over purchase fee cost, income over fee cost. So with that, I just want to close up the whole optimizer discussion. And again, thanks for listening to all this, and I hope we could let you see some of the functionality that we've brought into the optimizer. Thanks.